Hello. Hello all. Today we start our 19th session and of Global Oncology Implementing Science Program as a part of the Global Oncology Program. Today we have two distinguished leaders and pioneer in this field, Professor Luca Incrucci and Professor Wilfred Negua. With all of you, our dear colleagues. As we said before, the importance of this lecture video is not just the live participation and the participant during the session, but it is a base that we are preparing now, and you have already a playlist of all the previous session. It will be the first library full of topics focus only particularly, by the way, on how to increase affordability of better value cancer care. The question is not numbers, as you will see in our next week. In the presentation of Professor Alvaro, the director of Cancer Institute in Uruguay, it's not the numbers. Regarding the number of machines and service of clinical oncology, it is comparable to United States, but about what they are lacking. So we are seeking about both quantity and quality, or better to say, better value cancer patients through scientific approaches. Is not slogan, is not speaking, is not about the needs for cancer care. All of us know this, and there are thousands of articles about this. But what to do, and how to do, and how to think about many brainstorming ideas. I'll start now to say introduction for some brainstorming idea about idea, and this is pave the way for the important talks of Professor Luca Incrucci about Hypo-Africa, Professor Luca Incrucci et al., Professor Wilfred Negua, Professor Twalib Ngoma, and all colleagues, and the very exciting, interesting talks of Professor Wilfred Negua after. But before I speak, I would like that do you prefer Professor Luca Incrucci to present yourself now or before your talks?
Well, what you prefer. I thank you very much, Ahmed, for giving me and the consortium of Hypo-Africa the possibility to talk about this important trial. But please go ahead with your part first.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Hello. Today is Wednesday, March 6, 2024. Today is our 19th session of the Global Oncology Implementing Science Program. Hello all. Today is we present a very exciting, as usual, we have very exciting things to present. And we count on your feedback, comments, suggestions, modification. Feel free. Today we present radiocellofractionation, hypofractionation researches, and clinical trials. We concentrate on some points of hypofractionation and fractionation, but we'll present also some stimulating points that could be discussed and tackled after. Course directors of this series, Professors Kiro Sikora, Wilfred Negua, Stephen Avery, Siful Hakka, Twalib Ngoma, Taufik Ay, Bashkim Zibri, and Luca Incrucci, Professor Ricardo Audicio, David Kerr, Cristina Stefan, and Ricardo Audicio. See common question along this series. We repeat this and will be in front of us in all our in this series and in general in our initiative and our endeavor together to make clinical oncology, radiotherapy are more accessible and affordable in the world. Then we hope to lowering total cost of cancer care possible without compromising the outcome. Is that possible? Yes, yes, yes. In previous session, we gave tens as you have, and we have this all recorded. You can refer to it in our publication, and it's our videos of global oncology and implementing science are free for all, accessible. We give tens of examples of systemic cancer therapy. Then, could we double or more the number of treated patients with the existing available radiotherapy facility at present in the world? Yes, it is possible. If that will depend on what we do. Is it possible to increase the number of clinical oncology care services remarkably? Yes, it is possible. If the focus here in this lecture is on scientific example and brainstorming ideas that could lead to increase of affordability of good value radiotherapy. Your feedback, suggestion, ideas, and comments are welcome. Please, and this is the link, and all these presentations are present. These talks are we can provide you as PDF. You can have a link. You can make the link and everything is yours. Why research in radiotherapy? Till present, radiotherapy with or without surgery is responsible for most of the cure in cancer. All cancer drug therapy, all cancer drug therapy till now is responsible for only around 11 to 12% of cure in cancer. The remaining is attributed to surgery and radiotherapy. It is not us who say this is Cancer Atlas and other publication, many publications. 50 to 60% of cancer patients will need radiotherapy along the course of their diseases. There is growing more indication for radiotherapy, not as some think, in the upcoming years in combination with new technology like nanotechnology and immunotherapy. It is known that there is tragic shortage of clinical oncology radiotherapy services in most, and we say always clinical oncology radiotherapy services in most low middle income countries, particularly Africa, and less extent to a less extent in some affluent countries. Radiotherapy is a core modality of cancer treatment. However, concerns have been expressed regarding its underutilization and its lack of prioritization as a research domain relative to other cancer treatment modalities, despite its rapid technical evolution. For example, a total of 62,550 radiation therapy research articles from 127 countries published in 2,531 international journals were analyzed. The United States was responsible for 32%, 32.3% of this output, followed by Japan 8%, Germany 7%, 7.7%. Trial-related publications represented only 5.1% of total output. This is the trial-related publications. Only 5%. Greater support for radiation therapy research in low and middle income countries is required, including international collaboration. The study findings are expected to provide the requisite knowledge to guide future radiation therapy research programs. Progress in radiotherapy of cancer should not be limited only by technology evolution, but there should be a remarkable increase in many explorations, examining different hypotheses, ideas related to all scientific and biological aspects of radiotherapy of cancer and radiogenomics. either for radiotherapy of cancer alone or in the promising combination with systemic therapy, immunotherapy, smart biomaterial, radio biomaterial, nanotechnology, then eventually to conduct relevant clinical trials. We see that hopefully it wouldn't be slow or standstill progress, but with stakeholders, industries, scientific institutions, and all these needs, and funding for progress in cancer care, there are wide and ample places for many ideas and eventually hopeful scientific advances that may lead to market better scientific evidence-based, patient-centered value cancer care. There are ample places. Let me share with you some brainstorming point that I raise, but as I stress here that its crystallization should be after further thorough studies and contribution of many experts and researchers. In science, revisiting background and old experiences and observation, brainstorming points and ideas may assist in developing new ideas that may be modified or even sometimes used in the inverse, with the inverse side of the initial idea. It has happened many times in many scientific discoveries. Here are some points that could be tackled and brainstormed in 4 or 5 topics at least or more in next works. I give you some example brainstorming points, but we'll speak about hypofractionation as this is the issue. It will be tackled by Professor Luca Incroci after me, Hypo-Africa. And radio biomaterial, and very exciting contribution also, work of a team, a big team, and Wilfred Negua and Etal. This is very interesting, also very, very promising. Will be presented today. The number of fractions per week varies from single to 7 days session. It needs research, not to be established enough, no. To get common definitions and types, hypofractionation. Hyperfractionation, is there news? Timing of session. Is there circadian rhythm effect? If so, to what degree it could be of value in radiotherapy, or what I propose to call adjusted coronal radiotherapy? Is that feasible? Is that will be of value scientifically? Should the dose delivered in all sessions or part of the course be equal? I refer here to previous experiences of many in the 70s and 80s and 90s of different doses in not equal session, but we should pose the question about its scientific study and proof, and this goes empirical at that time. It was used for years by for example, by Professor Jacquia and Professor François Baillet in Hôpital Necker, Paris, France, and other technique of not equal fractionation was used in Central Guinea in the 80s and 90s, and was even presented to Professor the great Jelby Fletcher, the pioneer of MD Anderson, United States. He didn't say no. He didn't say yes. So it needs research. So there are many things to explore in scientific way. Dose rate, flash therapy, future direction, possibilities of photon flash therapy. I don't question. Genetic or racial differences in radio sensitivity responses, toxicity. In other words, why to conduct trials in different communities, or why we shouldn't consider that outcome and toxicity are the same in different populations. No, it is not the same. It is for genetic or racial causes or other factors like socioeconomic or others that could play roles in differences in outcomes and toxicities.
And there is should be the trials done, studied in depth, not only responses or toxicity between two types of fractionations, but to go deeper if possible. This needs funds, this needs a group of researchers, they need them multidiscipline. Like there are some talks about and publication about the delay in DNA repair among Black patients with prostatic adenocarcinoma. But attention that it is not for the same for, and this means more radiosensitive. And not, as we repeat always, it is bad, it is bad, it is bad. There are good signs, but we're not explored well. We don't give maybe the appropriate dose. I don't know. But we should take care that this is what was said about prostatic adenocarcinoma, but not the tissue of near tissue, the rectum, bladder, and even other pathology in these other organs. Is need a research. Is need I say something could be lightly here, but it needs to be studied in depth to see it is true and how in depth it's true. DNA repair, delay in DNA repair means more sensitivity to radiotherapy of a tumor. It is not exhaustive list, but it is opened for addition and discussions. Some background of this brainstorming, brief brainstorming, I see that some, particularly the new generation of our clinical oncologists everywhere in the world may think that the fractionation in radiotherapy and the conventional fractionation of 2 gray per fraction and 5 sessions per week is a holy thing, was proposed initially on radiobiological basis, or it was selected in the beginning of the era of radiotherapy on evidence basis. No, it was not on evidence basis. But in fact, in the beginning of 20th century, the output of X-ray machine was very low dose rate. Then some proposed multiple session or fraction over some days in cancer therapy. Some of them was the topic of thesis in 90.6. I read the original thesis of by a candidate for MD medicine in France. The original copy of 90.6. It was about fractionation, early ideas, just to solve the problem of not the radiological basis, but to solve the problem of very low dose machines. You need to stay hours beside the machine with no retroprotection at that time, no many knowledge about radiological things. So it was in the early. Those was really pioneers and heroes of the late 19th and beginning of the 20th centuries. Then, in order to give good amount of radiation, it was then proposed to give fractions on several days. It was empirical. Even the dose was empirical upon observation. And then upon first empirical, then upon observation, before the notion of the absorbed dose even. The radiobiological understanding for that notion of fractionations, doses, and radiobiological interpretation came after. The cause behind that, frequently the number of sessions was proposed to be 5 per week in almost countries. There is that Saturday and Sunday were off. So 5 days of working days. In Manchester, for example, in Christie Hospital was they use for, because they have some many patients, they use 3 fractions per week. It was early hypofractionation. It was a protocol. So hypofraction is not new, but it is needs more exploration now and more understanding. Then again, radiobiology come after. Then some important notion come after, like nominal standard dose, time dose factor, then alpha beta ratio, early and late toxicity, and other. Then it flows. All these came after the proposal of fractionations. Let me share with you some brainstorming continued fractionation per week in radiotherapy. How many fractions per week? Variety from single fraction to 6 or 7 fractions per week. Even Overgaard in Denmark, study with the IEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, published that 6 fractions per week for advanced ANT cancer could be more beneficial in lower recurrence and overall response. So it is not a holy thing, 5 days per week, 5 fractions per week. Other example of other modalities, single dose fraction in high dose single palliative fractionation, or radio for fraction for radiotherapy or radiosurgery, and stereotactic radiotherapy. Is there a definitive consensus about the definition of intermediate or moderate in hypofractionation? Is that above 2 gray or 2.2 or 2.4? And what is the upper limit of in the in another word, the lower limit of ultra hypofractionation? In other words, do we consider 2.1 or 2.5 gray per fraction, 3 gray, 3.5, 4 gray, or slightly more per fraction, all as intermediate hypofractionation? There should be subdivisions and definitions. Persons comment a lot of scientific work are needed in such areas in order to get common consensus and definitions. What do you think? There is midway solution that could be reasonable, particularly for low and middle income countries. The fractionation of 45 grays as 2.50 gray per fraction in 18 fractions. So 40 gray in 18 fractions. Has been used in Port Said, Egypt. We used it for years for post-mastectomy treatment and in whole breast radiotherapy, whole breast cancer after breast conservative surgery. In fact, it is not new invention, but it follows the fractionation practice successfully for years, since the 70s and 80s, 90s, and after in many French centers. Professor Daniel Sarrazin, Institut Gustave Roussy, Villejuif, France. My mentor, Professor Alain Logier, Professor Michel Chélangier, Hôpital Tenon, Paris, France, and others. Hence, we reduce the duration and cost by 7 sessions of radiotherapy compared to the conventional radiotherapy of 50 gray in 25 fractions. It is not promotion of technique here. Just an example. I present just an example. This not promotion. Just, you have to use this. No. It's impossible. But with this technique, but this example that with this technique alone, we can at least increase the opportunity of radiotherapy for around 30% more patients. Once again, without spending more funds, there is a lot that can be done to increase the affordability of value-based radiotherapy for greater numbers of cancer patients. This is the point. We advocate for more studies for evidence-based hypofractionation, which should be conducted for different localization such as prostate and other indication in the different communities. This is reference here. Please, you can refer to it, and this is the link. An example of articles, very beneficial paper. This paper is called Paper Enforced Key Concept about hypofractionation. Also needed further research into risk-tailored radiotherapy. It is the link, published 2021. Examples of external beam radiotherapy for prostate cancer. What are the current research trends? They are about oligometastasis, stereotactic radiotherapy, PSMA, hypofractionation, post-operative radiotherapy, and dose and fraction regime changes. Maybe the state of art of research frontiers and related studies would make advance in this field over time. There's full text article here, the link. Moderate to severe, this is also an interesting finding. Moderate to severe breast pain was seen in 37.1% of the total population after breast radiotherapy. Symptoms and toxicity were seen more frequently in the conventional refractionation group compared with patients receiving hypofractionation. It's very exciting finding. Therefore, the paper reinforced the context that women who are candidates for hypofractionation would be offered the option as it confers better tolerance. Race as the predictor of breast pain with radiation is an important finding as it deserves further evaluation. We have to assess the cause of this finding and improve the care of our multiracial breast cancer population. Question of there is a biological difference in the way of pain and toxicity is expressed in the Black and other races population, or if the cause of this finding is related to socioeconomic difference in patient engagement with healthcare provider and racial bias remain unanswered. More awareness of racial bias in healthcare system and education to provide bias-free care is vital. The finding of less toxicity in patients treated at a teaching center when receiving hypofractionation was interesting to note, and this association was not seen when looking at conventional radiation. Therefore, we say researches, and trials are needed. Hypo-Africa study. Professor Luca Incrucci will present a very interesting talk after me. Finally, we say that change is constant along the life. Since our common grandfather Adam, the first human being on Earth. Last week, we lost unfortunately, the late Professor C. Norm Coleman, USA, 1945 to 2024. So just last week. He was this great pioneer and scientific supporter to the Win-Win Initiative and this GOIS program. According to him, it is win power N. This is mean unlimited, not only win-win two sides, but limited. And here is the reference. It is one of the chapters that he contributed in our last book, contributed two chapters, in fact, and it is about win power N. At the end of this lecture, we say to all audience, readers, stakeholders, and key players in the world, please feel free to modify, to suggest, to adopt, and to implement what you see convenient. This global initiative is yours. Please send to any feedback or any comment or any critics to this is a link. And this link, by the way, go to the same way at the same time to at least 4 or 5 leaders on the Win-Win Initiative and this program, and then forward to other leaders. So please, this is your initiative. Thank you all for your attention. Best wishes for all of you. And as we say always, going forward, hand in hand, hand in hand.
Now, I have the great pleasure and the honor to present our colleague, distinguished Professor Luca Ancolucci. Present yourself, please, Luca Ancolucci, as you are the director of this course, in fact, with Wilfred and all. And then we'll present your talks. And then if there is comment after our update or something, we'll be very grateful to you. Then 3 minutes for you, then we'll broadcast your video.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hamed. And this is really a great initiative. And I admire your perseverance in going on with all these webinars and keeping us updated on the development of the university. My name is Luca Ancolucci. I'm a radiation oncologist from the Netherlands, originally from Italy. I moved here to the Netherlands many years ago. I'm a specialized GU radiation oncologist. That means that since 2000, I actually only treat patients with prostate and testicular cancer. And my interest of the last years, also because of meeting very interesting and important people like you, Dr. Ahmed, but also Dr. Ngwa, Dr. Tualib, etc., is really to try to increase radiotherapy facilities in low middle income countries, especially in Africa. So I'm very happy to be part of this group. And I'm particularly involved in Ethiopian projects, but actually the last years we are very proud to have been able to start up a Hypo-Africa consortium. That means that a very big group of oncologists, medical physicists, administrators, epidemiologists, ICT people are joining their forces together to start performing hypofractionation trials in Africa. The first example is the Hypo-Africa trial for prostate cancer that has been just finished with the recruiting 180 patients or even more than that. So we are now in the phase of analyzing the data. But we are very hardworking in setting up an ultra hypofractionation for prostate cancer that will be even shorter of a lower number of fractions, but even cervical cancer and breast cancer. So there will be a lot to do in the coming years, and we are happy to have a very strong group of people dedicated to Africa and increasing this possibility. So I hope you enjoyed the talk, and please feel free to email me or to ask questions to me and to the whole Hypo-Africa consortium as you want. Thank you again.
Thank you, Professor Luca Ancolucci, our dear friend and leader in this endeavor since its beginning. So this is your talk now.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar. Today, I will talk on hypofractionation for prostate cancer in Africa and address particularly the Hypo-Africa study. I have nothing to disclose. So what is and why should we use hypofractionation? Some data on the published hypofractionation trials and entertaining you with the Hypo-Africa study. As you know, radiotherapy in Africa is very limited. There are about 160 centers on the continent, but most of these centers are located in Egypt and South Africa. We also know that 29 countries do not have a radiotherapy facility, and we also know that many of these facilities are quite old, based mostly on cobalt machines older than 20 years. So what is hypofractionation? When we talk about hypofractionation, we mean a decrease of the total dose by increasing the fraction dose. So when you use 1.8 gray and you go up to that fraction dose, that's already hypofractionation. In Western countries, we normally use 2.0. Above 2.0 gray will also be hypofractionation. We can do easily hypofractionation with prostate cancer treatments because there is a disparity between the prostate cancer cells and the late complications which widens the therapeutic window by hyperfractionations. And of course, we can realize how important it is to reduce the number of fractions, improving patients' comfort. One of the pioneers of hyperfractionation was Dr. Kupelian, who already in 2007 published a study showing that a dose up to 70 gray using 2.5 gray per fraction was effective as the normal dose used at that time in the fractions of 1.8 gray, which is quite common in the US. As you can see, of course, there are some differences according to the low, intermediate, and high-risk prostate cancer, but in general, the biochemical free survival was very high, 82% of the patients comparable to the normal fractionation schemes. And also, what also is very important, the late GU toxicity and GI toxicity, grade 2 or higher, was similar in the normal fractionation as the hyperfractionation. This was not a randomized trial, but it was a prospective study. That was for us the reason in the Netherlands in 2007 to start the HyPro trial, where we compared the normal fractionation scheme of 39 fractions of 2 gray with the 19 fractions of 3 gray, including 820 patients. And we showed that there is no difference in relapse-free survival in both schemes of about 80% at 5 years. And as we also can expect, the overall survival was similar. We have recently data also published on the 7 years, and we will shortly publish data on the 10 years, and these numbers are very similar. What is, of course, very important is also to look at the toxicity, and we showed that the acute GI toxicity was, as expected, during treatment, higher in the hyperfractionation scheme in 42% of the patients compared to 31% of the standard fractionation. But as you can see on the right side of the screen, the acute GU toxicity was the same. And what is more important, the late toxicity, because that's what we have to tell to our patients. As you can see, there is no difference in grade 2 or higher GU or GI toxicity in both groups of patients. Both differences are not statistically significant. Luckily, in those same years, another huge trial was published in the UK by the group of Derneley, showing that 74 gray, the standard fractionation of 2 gray, and in total 74 gray in the UK, compared to the 60 gray, so 20 times 3 gray, showed also similar results of about 90% biochemical relapse-free survival at about 5 years after treatment. They also studied the scheme of 57 gray, but that was clearly a little bit inferior as compared to the 20 times 3 gray. And as you also can see at the bottom, the overall survival was in all these 3 groups, very similar. So for us was a reason to publish in 2007 a position paper in the South Africa Journal of Oncology, saying that the hyperfractionations offers economic and logistic advantages, reduce the burden of the very limited radiotherapy resources in most African countries, and should be used as much as possible. And we are supported by the guideline of ASTRO, ASCO, and AUA just 1 year after our position paper, published in Practical Radiation Oncology, saying that patients should be given the possibility to be treated in 20 fractions of 3 gray or 28 fractions of 2.5 gray, because there was no difference in toxicity and treatment outcome. And their recommendation was a strong recommendation with a high quality of evidence, showing and addressing that moderate hypofractionation should be offered regardless of patient age, comorbidity, anatomy, or urinary function. Recently, the group from Harvard University published a paper looking at the cost effectiveness of hypofractionation, looking at breast cancer and prostate cancer. And if we focus now on the right part of the graph, as you can see, the using hypofractionation for prostate cancer will mean treating almost the double number of the patients at the same time, and looking at the cost, one session of hypofractionation will be about half of the cost of the normal fractionation scheme. So $160 as compared to $8200. So also one more reason to encourage the use of hypofractionation. That's the reason why about 2 years ago we started this prospective phase 2 study, not randomized, in Africa called Hypo Africa. And I'm very thankful to the coordinating investigator, Dr. Wang from Boston, and of course, the founder, BioVentures for Global Health. We started this study in Nigeria and in Tanzania with PIs Dr. Joseph and Dr. Goma, but we expanded the protocol very recently also to with Dr. Malum in Durban, South Africa, and there are already discussions to extend Hypo Africa even to Uganda and in the near future to Ethiopia. Patients have been recruited since about mid-2022. We are reaching almost the total number of patients, about 160, and we also have, for many of them, a follow-up of at least 3 months. We published a practical guidelines for implementing hypofractionation radiotherapy for prostate cancer in Africa, which is, of course, necessary when you introduce this technique. We also published a very useful paper on the challenges that especially medical physicists have to realize and to address when introducing hypofractionations in Africa in general. And we also submitted an abstract, again, also with our encouragement of using hypofractionation for prostate cancer in general, but also specifically for prostate cancer in Africa to the ASTRO 2023 meeting. What can Erasmus MC offer to those centers who are interested in hypofractionation? We share our protocols. We help writing your protocol, like a Hypo Africa study that I have written for these African centers. We can help organizing workshops on site in those centers who want to start applying hypofractionation. We also can offer a training at Erasmus MC with hands-on at our center, where we are using hypofractionation now already for 15 years. And of course, we can help discussing quality assurance issues, clinical cases, and also planning problems or planning discussions through teleconferences. And of course, we all can help you in setting up research activities and collaborating in doing research together. So in conclusion, hypofractionation has been shown to be as effective as conventionally fractionated radiotherapy in prostate cancer, with a similar toxicity regimens, is cost-effective, improves patient comfort. It should be the new standard regimen for radiotherapy of prostate cancer, especially in those countries with limited resources. Of course, training and education are necessary, but we are all happy to help you doing this. Hypo Africa is really an example that hypofractionation is feasible in low and middle income countries, and especially in Africa. And we will be happy to share the first data with you at the forthcoming meetings this year and next year on treatment outcome and toxicity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Luca. And please allow me to introduce Wilfred Negua, and then for his presentation, and then the floor will be for both of you, dear leaders, Professor Luca Incroci and Professor Wilfred Negua. Professor Wilfred Negua, introduce yourself and please, and you will play your talks after. Will? Well, hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Let me say all that the Global Oncology Implementing Science, it's a program, all its program, video and everything. There is a link in the mother, let's say it's mother, the Global Oncology University. And who runs the show did Will, and we are very glad to be with us today. Please be with us always to lead the show, please.
Thank you. So hello everyone. So I'm Will Ngwa. I'm a professor of global health and radiation oncology, and the founding director of the Global Health Catalyst PI at Harvard and then Johns Hopkins. Yeah, so I'm also, with Professor Ahmed, co-founders of the Global Oncology University, and obviously very excited to be able to participate in this Global Oncology Implementation Science course in looking at ways that we can increase access to radiotherapy based on science, and that can actually be win-win, benefiting not just low and mid-income countries, but also high-income countries. Thank you.
Now we'll play their talk, and the floor will be for you, for both of you after. And for our colleagues, surely, the participants.
Hello, I am Dr. Will Ngwa, the founding director of the Global Health Catalyst. I'm very excited to talk to you today about smart radiotherapy biomaterials for combining radiotherapy and immunotherapy. I'd like to start with inviting you to imagine with me. Imagine if we could reduce the cost of immunotherapy from over $100,000 per year to less than $1,000. The $100,000 per year is currently what is being paid by patients in the United States. To reduce this is actually the vision of the work that I've been doing in my lab at Harvard and Johns Hopkins over the past 7 years. And this is really consistent with the win-win scientific initiative that Professor Ahmed El-Zawawi has been advocating for, with the goal of increasing affordability to better value cancer treatment for all. But I always like to start with these monster cancer statistics. The fact that in the United States, the lifetime risk of developing or dying from cancer is 1 out of 3. And then worldwide, looking at about 19 million cancer cases a year, about 10 million deaths a year, and major cancer health disparities, which affect poorer populations who don't have access to prevention, to treatment, or even palliative care. These monster cancer statistics, I call them monster because they kind of remind me of the monster Thanos, who is in the movie, the Marvel movie called Infinity Wars. In this Infinity War movie, the villain Thanos wakes up one day and decides that he is going to wipe out half of the world's population using the Infinity Stones. And when I look at these statistics of about 10 million deaths a year due to cancer, I think it's something that is very remarkable and stunning. You can call them monster cancer statistics. To address this problem, actually cancer There are four major cancer treatments that are offered right now. We call them Avengers, right? Avengers against Thanos. Surgery, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, which is one of my favorites because I work in radiation oncology, and then immunotherapy, which is more recent. And as you know, immunotherapy won the Nobel Prize in 2018 as a revolutionary type of treatment that can use the body's own immune system to fight cancer. However, as we just talked about, immunotherapy has many disparities, and one of the key disparities is the high cost to patients, which are estimated at over $100,000 per year in the United States. But one other disparity that we have is the fact that, and it's not just a disparity, it's actually a limitation, is that not all patients can currently benefit from immunotherapy. To address these barriers, I actually want to first of all give you some additional background and statistics on the other avenger against cancer, which is radiotherapy. So about a few years ago, there was this article that came out in the BBC, and it asked this question: do US docs have better access to radiotherapy than Nigerian people? It was a provocative question and drew a lot of comments. But the sad part of that is just that a lot of people answer this question with a yes answer. And as you look on this map on the right-hand side, you can see that there is a lot of red. These red regions are regions where there are very few or limited radiotherapy centers. You can see that a lot of those are in Sub-Saharan Africa and also in Southeast Asia. We have to change this because part of this is really because of cost issues. People don't want to invest into radiotherapy. And I think that as we look at how we can combine radiation therapy and immunotherapy, we have to think about addressing these disparities to both. So imagining that we can eliminate these disparities, I would say Martin Luther King said, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. And as you look at this picture here, you can see what equality is. You can see what equity is. You can see what the reality is currently with the disparities. But you can really see what justice, I think justice has to look like. You have to eliminate the barriers so that everyone can have access to cancer treatment. So let me talk a little bit now about what smart radiotherapy biomaterials have the capacity to do. So if you look at this picture we published in Nature about a few years ago, basically capturing what these smart radiotherapy biomaterials, how can they be employed, to treat cancer and increase access to care because they are low cost. So if you look on the picture on the left, that is the primary tumor that's being treated. Let's say you irradiate that tumor. What happens is that you cause damage to the DNA of the cancer cells. To amplify this damage to the cancer cells, we have these smart radiotherapy biomaterials, which have nanoparticles incorporated in them that can amplify the damage to the DNA. Once you've amplified the damage or you've damaged the DNA, you get these proper small particles, fragments that you see there, that are picked up by the larger purple cell that you see called the antigen presenting cell. Once this antigen presenting cell has picked up those fragments of DNA called neoantigens, it can travel to the lymph nodes and can cross-present these to T cells. And T cells are essentially the police force, the SEAL Team 6 of your body. They can patrol the body and they can go back to that cancer that was irradiated, or the primary tumor, and they can destroy it, they can attack it and destroy it, cause regression. At the same time, because your T cells patrol all over your body, you can also have them eliminate the cancer that has spread to other parts of your body, the one you see on your right side. And of course, about 90% of cancer patients die because the cancer has spread to other parts of the body. And so being able to have this approach that can eliminate both the primary cancer that you treated and the cancer that you didn't treat that is on other parts of your body is really powerful. We call this in situ vaccination. So basically what we did was use radiation to create a vaccine within the tumor on the left-hand side. And in creating this, these smart radiotherapy biomaterials have the following capacity to do. So one, they have these nanoparticles I mentioned that can amplify the damage to the DNA. But secondly, they can also deliver immunotherapy. They are loaded with drugs. They are like drones that are targeted to this particular cancer. And so they can deliver the drug precisely to the cancer. And very small amounts. You don't have to deliver high amounts. In fact, if you take the current amount of immunotherapy that's delivered to one patient, you can divide that hundreds of times to be able to give the amount that's needed by these nano drones to be able to deliver into one tumor. And so combined with the one treatment fraction of radiation therapy, where patients don't have to come so many times, we then have what you can imagine is a low-cost approach. This is particularly beneficial in those, if you look at that map where there was all red and there are very limited number of radiotherapy facilities. It really means that, with this approach, you can actually get to treat a lot more patients if you're just treating them on a one-day treatment or one fraction or hypofractionation. Then what you really do is you are treating more patients. And so we've actually done some studies to show that this will really increase access to care. Now, if you look at a diagram that I just showed you with the mechanism, so we've actually done a lot of studies on this, and we'll be able to establish these studies in animals that show that if the animal has cancer on their body, we can treat, you can see here, treat the pink, and then you see the blue is the untreated cancer. And then you can watch what happens. And if we can truly successfully create this in situ vaccination, then what happens is that the cancer that you treated will be attacked by those T cells and they will regress. And the cancer that you didn't treat would also be attacked by the T cells. Now that they've been trained with those neoantigens, they can also cause that cancer that you didn't treat to regress as well. And so what we've seen is that this is effective across different cancer types, and that's really encouraging. What we've seen further is that you don't only increase or cure the animals, but if you actually re-challenge the animal with cancer, then the cancer starts to grow, but then it regresses completely, which means that the vaccine effect that you created can truly have immunologic memory, which means that it remembers. And that's really important because it means patients don't have to worry too much about cancer recurrence. Now, the exciting thing here is that after so many years of work, we've been able to get FDA approval in 2023 for the first treatment using this approach of smart radiotherapy biomaterials for pancreatic cancer. Before I end, I actually would like to just give you a little bit more information about the capacity of these smart radiotherapy biomaterials. So I'll show you one design of this. So the nano drones design, what it really has is it's made of polymers, what is in brown, and it also contains a high atomic number material that can provide both MRI and CT imaging contrast, which means that, and then you can load your drugs on it, which means that the capability of these nano drones, you can target them precisely to the cancer, you can give it the zip code, and you can go there literally, that's what it means. They also can have the capacity to evade your own immune system, so they have stealth. And then once they are in the tumor, you can actually activate them to emit missile-like electrons that can damage that DNA, like I mentioned in that picture. And that means that you can really localize the damage only to the cancer cells. And then, in addition, because you can track them, because of the MRI and CT imaging contrast, you can track this and see that they actually accumulate within the tumor. And it can actually allow you to direct your radiation beam directly only to the tumor. So that's a really good capability that we have here. And then finally, it has these drugs. It's loaded with drugs, and the drugs can be released after you've activated them with radiation over time. So you can load your immunotherapy there and then allow it to be delivered sustainably over time, which means that patients don't have to come in a lot of times. They can just administer one treatment, and over time it causes the tumors to regress. So this is work that I've done extensively for a while, and other groups are beginning to work on this approach as well. But before I end, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the cost, because that's where we started. So what we've been able to do is that in a paper we published in 2020, published in the ASCO's Journal of Global Oncology, what we found out was that if you actually can bring down the number of sessions or fractions that a patient has to come for the radiotherapy treatment that ignites or starts this process, you can save a lot of costs, both for the patient and for the healthcare system. For example, in the United States, you think about Medicare, Medicaid. This will be something that the healthcare system can really benefit from if we can adopt this kind of hypofractionation approach, where you can use maybe fewer fractions of radiation, or even a single fraction, as we combine with immunotherapy using the smart radiotherapy biomaterials in this approach I just talked about. So we can save amount of cost, and then it also enhances patients' convenience. So for those who have to deal with barriers or long distance, have to travel long distance, they don't have to travel too many times. They can just come in a few times or one time. And so just to kind of end, I want to highlight that, we have been able to develop this smart radiotherapy biomaterial technology that now can deliver even just 1/1000th of what the immunotherapy that people would take right now, which means that it substantially reduces the cost of the immunotherapy itself. And if you combine that with the fact that it's a one treatment session with radiotherapy, then you can imagine how we can bring down the cost. But I would say that, we are really at the cusp of democratizing immunotherapy, which is really consistent with the win-win initiative. So we're very excited about this, and we can say that, while it may seem impossible, $1,000 immunotherapy for better value cancer care is around the corner, and it's possible. So I'd like to end by acknowledging funding from the National Cancer Institute, from the United States, the Department of Defense, and the Dana-Farber Harvard Cancer Center, and a number of other funders for this. And of course, a lot of this work I just showed you a sneak peek of has been done by so many collaborators, and I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you very much for your attention.
Very, very much, Professor Wilfred Negba, for these very exciting talks. And now the floor for you both and for the participant. If you would like to add updates to this talks or news or something, and the participant also, if our dear participant, if they would like to post questions, just send to us, or even after the session. I would like to remind that all these videos is not just for now. All are recorded, all are the accessible playlist. Please take these videos, this very precious video, to all your colleagues. Feel free. It is no patency. No. It is not. We don't claim any ownership. Please, we would be glad to diffuse to all your colleagues all over the world and to receive your feedback. It is yours. Professor Luca Incrocian, Professor Wilfred Negba, if you would like to add updates or news.
Yes, I can briefly update on the status of Hypo Africa, because the video is from some months ago. So as I mentioned, we have finished the recruitment. The target was 182 patients, and we reached that. We already submitted an abstract to the European Society for Radiotherapy and Oncology that will be in May in Glasgow. It will be presented there as a first abstract with the treatment outcome on not on all the patients, but on the first 125, I believe. And we are in the process of analyzing the data of all the 182 patients, aiming at submitting a paper in 3 months from now, probably. which is quite exciting, of course. And what we can say from the preliminary data is that it's safe. We have really shown a very limited toxicity, which is actually the scope of the study. We didn't need to show that hypofractionation is effective. We have enough trials in Western countries, but we only want to show that this is also safe and feasible in Africa. And so that's the way we are working now. And again, preparing already for step forward on ultra hyperfractionation. The idea will be to have 7 fractions of 6.1 gray for prostate cancer. That's based on the Scandinavian study performed in Scandinavian countries about 2 years ago, showing that 39 fractions, the standard one there, and in most of the European countries, is equal to the 7 fractions 3 times a week. If we can do that, of course, in not all prostate cancer stages, but in most of them, it will mean that going even from the 20 fractions of a hypoafrica to 7 fractions of ultra hypoafrica will be really very, very helpful for those centers that don't have a lot of resources. And we are talking now about low and middle income countries in Africa, but I mean, there are enough European countries where the waiting lists are getting longer and longer. And that means that this kind of fractionation will be very, very helpful also in Western countries. And if I may, I would like to ask immediately a question to Will, because the video is of some time ago, some weeks ago. I'm curious to know about the immunotherapy and the nanoparticles for prostate cancer, because as you know, I'm very interested about that.
So, Will, please.
Yeah,
Will?
sure, Luca. I mean, I think, like Professor Ahmed said at the beginning, it's really wonderful to have you leading this, hyperfractionation initiative, which, is really win-win. Like you just pointed out in the last statements, in Europe, we can increase access to care. In the US, we see that even minority populations, African Americans in particular, are disproportionately affected in terms of accessing, radiotherapy. And so this is something that can also benefit the United States. And so it's really consistent with the win-win notion where everybody can win. I mean, even investing in this kind of approach is not just helping, low resource settings. Then to your question about immunotherapy. So yeah, so based on this data that we've seen so far, like you talked about for hyperfractionation, the sites that are involved, Nigeria, Tanzania, Uganda, South Africa, and Ethiopia, which is, like you say, one of the updates is that more countries want to participate in this, right? But one of the key things that we see also is that there's a significant patient population that would like to access hyperfractionation, but cannot necessarily because they are coming with advanced stage disease, which, spread to other parts of the body. And so, there's really no option for them to, in that sense, right? So the combination with immunotherapy is exciting, particularly because it can offer a solution for those patients who have advanced stage disease. And so we see that, for example, prostate cancer, which you asked a question about, especially even in the US, metastatic castration-resistant prostate cancer patients are very common, high burden, the population in the US. And there's a gap right now in being able to address. And so immunotherapy combining this, so your presentation around hyperfractionation really, provides the good foundation for the next step, which is just adding this component of immunotherapy. And then that can really increase access to other populations who cannot benefit from just the traditional hyperfractionation. And so it's brilliant that Professor Ahmed, kind of brought us together. We're already working together, but put together, back to back on this talk today. The other addition, so where are we there? So we actually got funding from the NIH already to do more decent clinical trials. So prostate in particular, We are completing paperwork now to submit also for the FDA. The FDA has already said that, with the pancreatic cancer, if we finish the phase 1 for that, we can directly go to phase 2 for prostate cancer and, lung cancer and, cervical cancer and other cancers. We don't need to necessarily go through a phase 1 clinical trial, using this technology. So, which means that, we'll definitely be working with you soon on looking at that, once we get this FDA approval as well. So we're very close to that. We actually talked to the, right now on the clinical trial, it's going to involve Dana-Farber at Harvard, and then Johns Hopkins, Northwell, which is a group of hospitals in New York, and then, low and middle-income countries. And that's where, we'll definitely be looking forward to collaborating with you and the Hypo-Africa sites, in doing that. The only additional update, that I have is that, obviously, one of the key drivers of some of these collaborations is really funding, being able to have that. And I think the progress that we've made so far that you reported, Professor Luca, and the data itself has really provided a good foundation for generating additional funding. And so, so right now I'm very excited because, we've actually got an approval, to get, up to $100 million to drive this low-cost immunotherapy approach, in collaboration with low and middle-income countries, which I think will really be a great poster child for the win-win scientific initiative. Because if we succeed in this, it's going to tremendously benefit, like I talked about in the presentation, both high-income countries and low and middle-income countries.
Thank you very much. It's very exciting. And both of you together, we wait to hear very near news and progress. And this will be for all participants a good translation of the word of this title, increasing affordability of better value cancer care, because over decades it was just agendas, planning, and but this really what can realize this. So thank you very, very much. And if any participant would like to seize the occasion to address for both Professor Luca Incrucci and Professor Will any question, and I thank Professor Samir. He said thank you for this endeavor, and this is not our endeavor. This is yours also. It's all our endeavors, all of us. So if there is any question from participant. Even if it's not now, you can send always to us, and we forward to colleagues. This is what we say. This is a live library. That this video will be present always with link to feedback, and we'll send to talks, because the talks is not finished. This is just maybe just begun. And what presented Wilfred Negwa and Luca today is just a beginning of very promising things. So if you have any comments to add, Luca or Will? Luca?
Maybe just one thing, because I think that when we present these kind of initiatives and studies in Africa or in other low middle income countries, the most asked question is, how can we do this with our small resources, technical resources, personnel, experience, etc. So we have learned a lot with the Hypo-Africa, and thanks to this big group of the consortium of Hypo-Africa, with a lot of medical physicists, including Will, but many others, they really have done a lot of work. And it's true, there are challenges, there are difficulties, but we have succeeded. And so we want to assure all these people, all these colleagues all over the world who say, we would like to do this, but we need help. Please let us know, and our group can help. Because it's true, it's not just that you can start tomorrow hypofractionation just like you do a normal fractionation, but it's really feasible, it's safe, and we have shown with Hypo-Africa that it's really possible, and safe, and the patients are very happy with that. So that's an invitation to all of the colleagues interested, really to write it to us, to ask us, and we will be very, very happy to help.
Thank you for this very kind invitation, and please forward to all your colleagues everywhere. Professor Will, if you would like to close this session, as you are the leader of this the show. And again, there is a link of global oncology implementing science in the Mother Global Oncology University, and it is live with you all, professor, experts, younger colleagues, all stakeholders. Professor Luca, Professor Wilfred.
Will, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me let Taufik speak. Taufik, you want to say something?
Yes, please,
Right. Okay.
please, Taufik. Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really, I'm sorry I came in late. I traveled, and but I've tried to ask my colleagues too, and I'm really glad to see quite a number of them. It's really very interesting, and I'm glad, I mean, listening to this last comment of Professor Nkrochi, and the fact that, I mean, trying to say it as it is, there's no doubt about it. There'll obviously be challenges like any other thing. And it's not that perhaps, especially asking the sites, that have been involved in this Hypo-Africa, it's not something that probably we could wake up any day and think that we can just jump into the bandwagon. There'll obviously be, some little challenges here and there, but the data, and especially when it's going to be published now, has been shown that it is doable, and then it's something that probably we really going to gain a lot if we are able to jump into the bandwagon, permit my use of language, and especially in our climb here already, as I came into Katsina this morning, I mean, we are discussing the issues again. Don't let me call it challenges, again now, but if indeed, with the few facilities that we have, if we are able to do more, by this hypo regime, trying to be able to, if 10 factions can do it, why do you have to do 20? Why do you have to do 30? So it means we are able to attract more patients onto these few facilities, and we are able to spread the good news, more. So I think it's, I mean, it's a very worthwhile venture, and I'm glad to see colleagues, on the webinar this evening. And I think it's really going to be very important. I'm putting this up to the NAMP leadership, that if we could even have a small subcommittee, that will bring about, I mean, this would definitely accelerate bringing about some of this evidence-based and useful regime into our treatment mix, in the country. I think this will go a very long way in making things happen here and trying to use some of these already proven cases to really advance our cause in the face of all these other negativities that we have in the country. I want to thank Professor Luca and Wilfred again, for bringing this about, and the kind invitation at any time by Professor El Zawawi. If we have issues, please bring it up, and you can definitely see into the nice warming hands, of all these nice and very knowledgeable faculties, in the world to really push this forward. And on this note, again, I really want to just mention, the sad incident we had last Friday. I remember 2 weeks ago when I was trying to make my presentation, Professor El-Zawawi was actually asking me, is Norm Coleman going to be on the webinar? I said, sure, trying to assure him, because I felt perhaps I've informed Nina, who is the executive director of the ICEC, and this will actually translate to bringing in some of the board directors of ICEC on that paper, which is being translated to this webinar now. Not knowing that Norm was actually going to the hospice at that point in time. And unfortunately, we lost Professor Norm Coleman last Friday. I mean, it's a great mind who has helped in this kind of endeavor that the GOIS and the Global Oncology University is bringing again into the whole world now. So on that sad note, I would like to use this platform to probably do a 1-minute silence, for the soul of Norm Coleman, and all those other great minds who have been assisting in this endeavor in the whole world, that God repose their soul and give the family and all of us that left behind the comfort, to take this irreparable loss. Thank you for the 1-minute silence, please.
Yes, please. 1-minute silence. Okay, start now.
May their souls rest in perfect peace, please. Thank you, Professor Ahmed. I really appreciate this. God bless you and all of us. Yeah.
Thank you all, and really it was unfortunate to lose to be a big loss to Professor C. Norm Coleman, who was very great supporter really to the Win-Win Initiative, to the global oncology work, and really we lost him. But we will follow his steps and the steps of all the great pioneers. Now, I would like just to remind you, next week we have it will be another date or time will be about 6 p.m. Greenwich time, because this will be Ramadan for the most people in West Africa, North Africa, and we'll have very exciting. Again, we have always been exciting things. This is from the real life, real experience. One from Latin America, from Uruguay, and different experience in Republic of Georgia, East Europe, and the third one from Mozambique, and all with really a brief but very informative lessons and different experience. So we are going to the real side of practice and what is the challenges, and there are many positive things, there are some challenges, but we can cross it all together. There are solutions and there are some suggestions. It's very exciting from Latin America, East Europe, and Mozambique, and all are very positive and start of many good lessons for all of us. Personally, I learned a lot. So if Professor Will and Professor Luca, thank you very much. And if you would like to close the session, Professor Luca.
Yes, thank you again for doing this and for participating. And again, everyone can send always emails or questions through the email address or through Ahmed. So thank you again and have a nice evening.
Thank you. And thank you all participants. Will?
Yeah, I just wanted to add and thank Taufik for acknowledging Norm Coleman. I think it was really big loss for the world, but obviously, like Professor Ahmed said, we would love to continue, building on the work that he started, and we'll definitely, he was just a remarkable person. And then I just want to mention that, like Professor Lucas said, as you reach out, we actually going to be sending out a survey on looking at the capacity to conduct hypofractionation for the breast, cervical, and ultra hypofractionation. So we're going to be sharing that to all the sites that are interested, people who are interested in participating, to be able to do that. Because like you said, it's very important that, the safety and making sure that as we implement these clinical trials, that the same thing that's being done in Europe or US is also being done in Africa or other sites. And so we're going to be distributing that, and that will help us also set up a next course on the Global Oncology University, which is going to be on hypofractionation to kind of build capacity once we identify the needs from that needs assessment. So that will be a follow-up course to this Global Oncology Implementation Science course. So thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Professor Ahmed, for your leadership.
Thank you. And all what you say, survey, we have now 300 to 309 register in this program, and then they receive regularly. So anything we'll send to all of them. And thank you, Tawfiq. We are together, always, Tawfiq, together. Thank you all, and bye-bye. Till next time. Bye-bye.